But yes, I would rather watch any kind of a race where the tires have to be managed. Um, I don't consider this a gimmick. I consider this trying to combat the next gen race car. It's um, something you have to put on the track for a positive product when you have such a negative in the race car itself.
The following is a production of the garage area.
Welcome into the garage area. We are here after the Bristol race, where we saw something kind of unexpected, or maybe somewhat expected if you're Ryan. About the only person that I know of that kind of predicted this tire wear thing after Saturday practice times. But my favorite race of the year is always the Bristol night race, and it's kind of disappointed somewhat recently. I blame the next gen car, but whatever you want to put the blame on, it's kind of struggled in recent years. But not the case this time. I actually thought this was a really good Bristol night race. A whole variety of topics to cover. The tire wear was an issue, or a non-issue, however you want to look at it. It was a talking point. It was interesting. We had a playoff elimination race and a lot of different guys to talk about in that sequence. Um, where do you want to start? What do you want to talk about first?
I mean, tires, I guess. I don't know.
All right, let's start with the tires then. Um, like I said, over the weekend, well, leading up to this race, we had heard that that Goodyear had brought a softer right side tire to Bristol. They didn't have any time to test it, and so this being on the track this weekend was going to be the first time we found out how it reacted. Well, after they went through practice, it didn't look like it was going to make any difference at all. And as soon as we got into the race, 30 laps in, who was the first car to pit? Was it Austin Dillon?
No, that was AJ Allmendinger, I think.
AJ Allmendinger, the pole sitter. Uh, and it was they saw the tire come off of his car, and it's like, we got a problem here. They are going to be wearing these tires out, which to me doesn't make any sense if it's temperature sensitive. Why it's colder? You'd think it'd be hotter.
Yeah,
Would be the thing that would cause it.
yeah, I don't know what it is. I think it's just the I think a hotter track collects the rubber and then slows the tire wear, whereas a colder track, the rubber doesn't adhere and it just keeps grading and grading and grading. So that's how I see it.
So the as the rubber peels off the tire in a hot racetrack, now that tire is running on that peeled off rubber and it just isn't wearing away.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. I hadn't looked at it from that perspective before. Um, a lot of people online, some people were happy about this, other people were upset about it. Some people called it a gimmick. Rudy Fugel said that I can't remember exactly what he said. Basically, that he wasn't in favor of this type of a race. Austin Dillon was very vocal, one of the guys that got eliminated, that he didn't enjoy this at all. What was your take on it? Were you excited to see this type of race?
Well, this made it definitely made it a better race than I think we would have gotten with no tire wear. But on the same front, we want tire wear, but this to me is excessive, and it's not like it doesn't feel like a steady decline to no tires. It feels like it's good, 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 and then gone. It's like you just you're holding on to see how many laps you can hold on, not like keep trying to like keep your car faster for a long run. It's just trying to see how long you can keep the tires on it, and it does feel a little gimmicky. Not to say that I didn't like watching this race, but I feel like they got to find another happy medium. But then again, you just don't know what you're going to get with temperature wise and the weather each weekend.
Very true. Um, I guess I'd have to say that I would take this over the spring race 100 times out of 100. I'd rather watch these guys have to save their tires, rather watch them have something that they manage from behind the wheel rather than just run all out as hard as they can. And Kyle Larson was another guy that was whining about that. He's a guy that dominated the style of racing where you can just go all out. So if you put the one of the better drivers in the best race car in the field and stick them out front to start the race, I mean, they can probably keep it out front. I don't want to watch that kind of a race. I'd much rather watch what we had going on Saturday night. But my issue with it is it got very confusing there for a while because you didn't know who was going to shake out on what tire strategy and who was going to be up front at the end. It was kind of like a fuel strategy race in the sense of you just had to wait for all the dominoes to fall before you really knew who was going to be in good position. because there's just too many strategies happening at once to untangle that mess. Um, but yes, I would rather watch any kind of a race where the tires have to be managed. Um, I don't consider this a gimmick. I consider this trying to combat the next gen race car. It's um, something you have to put on the track for a positive product when you have such a negative in the race car itself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, like I said, I maybe gimmick was a bad word for it, but it just um, maybe trying something like this in a playoff race may not have been the best way to do it, and maybe should could have been done more in the spring race to see if it made anything better. But I mean, obviously, it was still an entertaining race to watch.
Yeah, I think that the fact that it's a playoff race, the fact that it's a cutoff race, I would have zero issue with it if this is how the track raced, this is how the tire wear was, if you could know that when the green flag dropped. If you knew that this is the kind of race you were going to have when the race started, I would have no problem with it because everybody knows what to expect at that point. When it became a surprise, that's where it's kind of a bummer that it happened in the playoffs and at a cutoff race, but entertaining nonetheless. Where do you put the race itself on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'll give it an 8. I mean,
An 8?
yeah, beating, banging, a lot of pushing and shoving, and um, definitely a lot of passing. But yeah,
Yeah, I would give it a 9. Um, and the reason that I'd give it a 9 and not a full 10 is just for the fact of it didn't feel like this is something that you could plan on necessarily. Like, I don't think that when we come back to Bristol in the spring, we're definitely going to get this kind of a race again. And that's unfortunate because I would enjoy seeing that. I would like to see guys set up their race cars for this type of tire wear and see what kind of difference that makes as well. Um, I don't have a ton to complain about, and I know that NASCAR fans always have something to whine about, and it certainly seems like that online, especially lately here. I think everybody's in agreement that we hate this car, but the things that they want to do to fix it, or uh, you get some shred of positivity, like the tire wear out of Bristol, and they're still harping on that as well. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But um, yeah, I'm giving it a 9. I'm just going to count my blessings and move on because this was a very entertaining race. We got to watch it together, and we were just both infatuated the whole time. I don't know about you, but I was like rarely looking at my phone during the time that there was racing on the screen. Even in the side by side stuff, I was still kind of following the little box to see who's hitting pit road and has anybody blown a tire yet? Is there another caution at any of that? I was glued to the action all night. Whereas most of the time, it's like I'm just waiting for Steve Letart's voice to change before I actually start paying attention to the screen again.
yeah, definitely. There's a lot more to watch for.
Um, I'm looking at my notes here. I kind of just wrote down everything that took place during the race. One of the things that like I said, you acknowledged it in our preview video that tire wear could be an issue. It was on your radar. How much faith did you have that it was actually going to turn into this type of race?
Um, I really didn't have much faith. I figured it was going to be more like this spring when everyone thought we were going to have the tire because last spring practice they had drivers shredding tires, and then when the race came, everything was fine. So um, I figured if well practice was going to be good for these guys, um, then they probably are going to have the same issues. You know, I watched the Xfinities and the Xfinity race and the truck race, and you know the high groove ended up coming in throughout parts of the race and whatnot, and I just figured it was going to be the same for the Cup race, no matter what they got. So, it's amazing how much tire temperature matters for the wear of the tire.
Yeah, I would offer a sincere thank you to Goodyear Racing after this weekend because obviously a tire that wears out doesn't look good for them as a company, and they're literally only here just to advertise. Thank you, Goodyear, because this is exactly the kind of band-aid that we needed to to save the racing. I mean, can you imagine if we had the type of racing that we had at Bristol last spring, they'd be ready to burn down headquarters again. And I feel like we just got people calmed down from that. Uh, Everybody was ready to revolt against NASCAR at one point, and then we had a string of three or four good races, and now everybody's they're calmed back down again. But I think if we had another race like we had in the spring, they'd be having the pitchforks and torches out again. As far as actual playoff drivers, who list off the four that got eliminated?
We had SVG, Alex Bowman, Austin Dillon, and
Josh Berry.
Josh Berry. Yeah.
So looking at our sheet, I'm looking to see who we each had out. You had SVG being eliminated. I'm kind of surprised that the amount of points that he had, that was the position that he ended up being in. Um, I expected him to be a little more competitive through the first round. Some of the stuff that happened to him wasn't entirely his fault, but not nearly to the Josh Berry level, and just it just wasn't working. And I had no faith that he was going to end up being a threat for a championship anyways. But that this to me was kind of his championship. Could he make it out of the first round? And he couldn't. And I don't think that that means that. Look, I know I give Alex Bowman a hard time on here, but this doesn't compare to me to Alex Bowman not getting out of the first round. Like with SVG not making it, even though that he had such a head start with the bonus points from the wins and stuff. Um, I don't hold this against him. I don't look at him and say, he just ain't got it. He's not the driver that is ever going to win races in NASCAR on anything other than a road course. I don't believe that. I think he's a good driver. He just needs a little more time in the seat. Um, but you did call that one saying that he would be eliminated in the first round. But you also said that Austin Cindric could be eliminated in the first round, and he came close. He was on the border a couple times. Did he actually ever dip below the cut line tonight or during the Bristol race?
I think it got within a couple points, but that was it.
I know he was down to 1 point after he had to pit under green at one time um, toward the end of the race, but
Yeah, when he caught
he
fire and
became the
lost all those
last car.
positions.
Right, yeah, you're right. Um, he ended up being the last car, the amount of laps down that he was, if that makes any sense, and couldn't lose any more spots unless he lost another lap. And at that point, it was just +1 to the cut line, but he had a long ways to go to lose anything else. And I think Bowman was second at that point. So that was, if he moves up to first, then he wins the race and advances regardless. Um, so yeah, that Cindric was pretty close, but he did not end up getting eliminated. He skated through into the next round. Uh, I had Ross Chastain as being the first car out. Kind of the same situation as Barry or as Cindric. He was close, but um, not in any real threat of getting eliminated tonight, and did a did a serviceable job through this first round. I would be pretty nervous about him this next round if I was the Trackhouse team, but he was able to hang on. So I missed it on that one. We both had Josh Berry, and man, that guy just a miserable first round. Just anything that could go wrong did. Ended up catching fire in his car Saturday night, and uh, thing would have burnt to the ground had he not been there on pit road. They got him out of the car. Looked like he inhaled quite a bit of smoke. Just unfortunate. This seemed like a race that Josh Berry could really, um, not necessarily win, but kind of show his stuff a little bit. And he didn't even get a chance to compete for that, so that was disappointing on that front. Austin Dillon, we both had him out, uh, and he does end up getting eliminated. Like I said, was pretty upset at the fact that they were set up to go race and they couldn't go race because they had to deal with the whole tire thing. Again, I think that the tire thing is part of racing, so I don't think that's a fair statement on Austin's part. But I get his frustration that it would have been nice to know that this is the kind of race that you were going to be in. And then obviously I had Alex Bowman, and he did end up getting eliminated. So we each had three of the four. Um, no, yeah. We each had three of the four. You had SVG. Josh Berry, and Austin Dillon that were correct, and your wrong pick was Austin Cindric. I had Alex Bowman, Austin Dillon, Josh Berry, and my incorrect pick was uh, Ross Chastain. So, with that being said, do you have the playoff points pulled up at the moment
Yeah,
as they stand going into this next race?
yeah.
So, who are the first four below the cut line right now?
Um, Austin Cindric down one, Joey Logano down two, Ross Chastain down two, and Tyler Reddick down three.
Okay. And then who are the next two or three guys?
Bubba Wallace plus one, Chase Elliott plus five, and Chase Briscoe plus 10.
Okay. Um, so this is the round of 12 that we're going to cut down to eight. Who do you see as the next four out?
Uh, well, for me, as I look at the top 12 in points, I think the top six are safe. Now, Chase Briscoe plus 10. He's been having enough speed. I think he's plenty good. Ryan Blaney has enough speed. 19 up, he's plenty good. Of course, Bell's probably going to win at New Hampshire this weekend, but I think all of them guys have enough points and enough speed to move on. So we got to take four out of these bottom six. I just know Joey Logano is going to do something, probably point himself out of there. I know Chase hasn't run that strong this year. I'm kind of worried about him. I mean, he's been one of the most consistent drivers, but at the same point, I feel like they just don't have the strength to, especially in New Hampshire. I know he's weak there, and he hasn't been the same at like the Roval since the next gen car. So to me, I think Chase falls out, and either Tyler Reddick or Joey Logano points their way in.
Okay. Um, First of all, what are the next three tracks? Do you know?
We have New Hampshire, I believe. It's either Vegas or Kansas. I don't
Let me
remember.
look it up.
Yeah, and then of course we have the Roval. Then
Yeah, it's New Hampshire, Kansas, and the Charlotte Roval. Um, wow, what a disaster of tracks in this round. Uh, So, like you said, I think that Christopher Bell is going to be strong at New Hampshire. He's not who I would pick to win, but I'm glad to know that that's who you want. Uh, and um, Kansas is kind of a little more wide open. I feel like there's been several guys that have won there. It's not just a one team or manufacturer dominated racetrack. And then the Charlotte Roval, I feel like is SVG, Chris Bell, Kyle Larson, guys like that. Um, I could see them all running well up there. Probably AJ as well. He seems to have picked it up a little bit lately. So with knowing that those are the three tracks, you kind of ran through some guys there in a group that you thought might be in trouble. Who's your official four picks then of who you think will be eliminated?
I think it'll be Austin Cindric, Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, and Chase Elliott. I think Tyler Reddick makes his way out.
Austin Cindric, Ross Chastain, Joey Logano, and who?
Uh, Chase Elliott.
Elliott. I'm kind of surprised that you're that down on Elliott. I get it. Like you obviously follow him closer than a lot of people, and he's on my list of people I'd be concerned about. But to be eliminated this round seems like a little bit soon for the nine team. Uh,
I hope I'm wrong, but it just doesn't. It just I'm not feeling it from that team this year.
Now earlier you said that you felt like Joey Logano was going to figure out a way to get himself in there, but now you've gone back on that. You think he's out.
Yeah, I just feel like this is hard because they all feel pretty even through the rest of the bottom six. Other than Bubba Wallace has been running really well lately. I feel like Reddick has just had more bad luck than anything, and I just feel like he has the speed to compete and just hasn't had the luck, I guess. So I just feel like Tyler Reddick and the Toyotas this year just have been outperforming anyone else. So I just feel like him and that Toyota probably gives him more of an edge over the rest of the guys. I know he can run strong at Kansas, and he's decent on the road courses also.
Yeah. Um, I'm not gonna agree with you entirely, but I am gonna take several of the same guys. I think the one and the two are out. Cindric, I think, barely hung on to get through this round. Chastain, I just don't think that they have the speed to make it. It just, it's not there. I do think that Joey Logano's out. Looking at the, looking at the racetracks, New Hampshire, I would be happy if he got a top 10 there. Um, Kansas, he could win that race, or he could finish 25th. Like I don't know what to get out of him at Kansas for sure. Um, and then the road course, I don't have any confidence in unless Alex Bowman gets thrown out again. Uh, I don't know what you're gonna do at that point. He gets a lot of grief over that uh, Roval race last year because they were in a position to point their way in, and he actually ran really well, but just Bowman just ran good enough to stay in front of him. And if I'm not mistaken, Bowman was the car he was racing. Uh, and then after the race, it was like 2 points or something. It was fairly close. I'd have to rewatch that race or rewatch that scenario to find out for sure. But I do remember it being close, and I was coming into that race thinking Logano had no chance to advance, and then he actually ran fairly well and was close to Bowman, but Bowman ended up pulling it off in the end. And I was like, hey, that's more than I expected out of those guys. So good work on the 22 crew this year. And then Bowman gets thrown out. And then people, say, oh, Logano would have never won this championship if Bowman hadn't got disqualified. Well, he probably would have outraced him if his car had been legal. So I, that argument to me goes both different directions there. And not saying that that's anything that Alex Bowman did wrong, just saying that I don't think that that's as big of an argument against Logano's championship last year as people think that it is. Um, again, I don't like this system. I understand why people feel the way they feel. I feel that way about the fact that, Logano won the championship last year after running the way that he did. This is a broken system. It needs fixing. I'm on board with all of that. I just had to throw that thing in there. That popped across my mind today and felt the need to share because, I'm sitting behind a microphone. Um, so that's three of my four guys, Cindric, Chastain, Logano, and the 23 is running too well. The 19 is running too well. To me, it's between the 9 and the 45. It's kind of a flip of a coin there, but I'm going with the 45. I just think that um, the Hendrick speed will carry Chase Elliott through Kansas and the road course. I'm a little bit nervous for him at New Hampshire, and I'd give Reddick the edge there, but I think that I give the edge to Chase at the other two racetracks. So I'm taking the 45 out instead of the 9. So I'll mark that down on our sheet here and see how wrong those predictions end up being. If we can go 3 out of 4 again, that ain't bad. I would have a hard time seeing anybody other than those guys get eliminated though, because that was the only one that we flip-flopped on was the 9 and the 45. Everybody else we were in agreement on. I don't see the 23 falling out. He's just running too strong. The 19, um, the 20, the 12, the 11, the 24. Jordan Bianchi on the teardown today picked William Byron to be out this round. Um, kind of a little bit surprised by that in that pick there. I could see it, but I don't necessarily. I don't think this is it. I don't think that he misses the round of 8. I don't think he's in the final four. But speaking of the final four, yours are Byron, Hamlin, Blaney, and Bell. And I think that the last time we talked, you thought that maybe you'd put the 19 in there over the 20. Uh,
Over the 24.
but Bell did just. Oh, you said you put him over the 24?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said over the 20 last time, but that's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Bell did just win the night race. I don't know if we actually said that or not, that Bell won this race at Bristol. Um, so you're saying you'd put Briscoe in over Byron.
Yeah.
So if you could change it today, it would be Briscoe, Hamlin, Blaney, and Bell.
Yeah.
Mine are Bell, Blaney, Briscoe, Logano. Um, yeah, I think I'd probably yank the 22 out, obviously. And then it's kind of a toss up between the 11 and the 5, I think. But I don't know. I feel like if Joey Logano makes it through this round, then I'm back in on him being in the final four. But yeah, I don't know. I feel pretty good about our picks there for guys that are going to get eliminated. As far as the racing on the track, I told you out loud as we were sitting there watching that race. As soon as Allmendinger came down pit road and they changed those tires, I said, "Cue Brad Keselowski." And I just assumed that somewhere along the line, he would end up finding his way up there to the front. And he probably should have won that race. Just the line that he picked on that last restart didn't go. And he seemed to even have the better car than Bell. And when he got to Bell's back bumper there on the white flag lap, I think coming off of two, we were surprised at how much he closed on him. And then going into three and four, it was like, this could be it. And he hit him really, really hard. And it barely moved Bell's car. That bothered me a little bit. So two questions here. One, did that irritate you to see how little the 20 car moved after a big shot like that? And secondly, had it worked the way that I assume Brad was intending it to, and he actually dumped the 20, would you have been upset at the fact that Brad won the race that way?
Um, I definitely shouldn't have to hit a car that hard to move him out of the way. Obviously, we all go back to wanting the Gen 4 car. All you had to do is slip your nose about just underneath the guy and it'd wiggle him up out of the groove. Um, had uh had Bell been dumped, kind of like Austin Dillon style at Richmond, that would have been kind of a sketchy move, I guess you could say. I probably would have been a little more ungrateful for that type of finish. Um, I would like to see it done a little more fairly, just more of a bump and run like you would see back in the day. Just move them out of the groove and get past. But I just these cars or whatever just so stuck to the track that it's hard to do that anymore.
What if it was somewhere in between that and it was kind of like Logano's move on Byron at Darlington a few years ago, to where he hit him really hard and he ends up in the fence, but isn't wrecked. Like, how do you feel about that?
Um, yeah, I don't want to see you guys putting other guys into the fence, even like the Logano incident. If you move him out of the groove and then maybe he gets a little bit loose and into the fence, that might be a little different because he's in a bad groove or whatever, bad lane. But yeah, the I just the only bump and run that's coming to my head now is the Jeff Gordon one on Rusty Wallace and just got his nose under and moved up a lane and Gordon went on by. That's those are the type of moves I want to see, but that's not what you can really do anymore in this car, it seems like.
Yeah, that is frustrating. Ty Gibbs ran really well, but again, a mistake at the end is what cost him. Blew his entrance to pit road on the last green flag stop of the race, if I'm not mistaken, and ends up kind of throwing away everything that he had built up there. And then did he have something happen beyond that? I feel like he might have had another issue.
I can't think of anything after that, but
Where did he end up finishing? Do you know?
um, finishing 10th.
Okay, so that wasn't a bad recovery then.
Yeah.
So he has I think he led the most laps in the race, right?
Um, yeah, he led 201 and Chase Briscoe had the second most at 127.
So it's easy to say that this round has been dominated by Joe Gibbs cars. Um, even to the point where, Ty leads the most laps in this race, but Bell gets the win. I mean, that's as much of the love as you could spread around with one team. Do you feel like Joe Gibbs Racing is the favorite going forward?
I would say so. I figured once Chase Briscoe started hitting his stride in the summer months, like Pocono on, you could tell the whole organization. I feel like we're getting top fives and top tens, and you know, Bell finally got a win after the long summer stretch after he got like three in the first quarter of the year. But um, Bell ran strong last week. Probably didn't get to finish he deserved at Gateway, and you heard about it on the radio afterwards. But I feel like those three cars are probably the cars to beat this weekend or this playoffs.
And this weekend.
Yeah,
You think Ty Gibbs is going to win a race this year?
I feel like he probably missed his chance.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
Um, Ryan Blaney also ran really well, and his strategy was seemed to be in a good position there with Jonathan Hassler trying to make him uh, stop one less time than everybody else, save a set of tires. And it was him and Gibbs battling for the stage wins, both in stage one and stage two. Blaney winning the first one and Gibbs winning the second one. It was looked like some good pit strategy and some good drive and a good race car, just all around a good performance out of the 12 team. Where did Blaney end up finishing?
Fourth.
So a good night for him. Ends up finishing off strong. Speaking of finishing people off, Ty Dillon seemed to be around every single accident that was taking place on the racetrack there for a stretch of time, and we had a ton of cautions in this race. Did it seem to you like we were running under caution a ton?
Yeah. There was a stat somewhere. There was over 2 hours of caution time.
Yeah.
There was more caution time than green flag lap time.
Our picks, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson, ended up really bad. They both had bad issues. Larson, I think, broke a toe link at one point. Hamlin lost a wheel on the racetrack. He's probably going to have crew guys ejected, is my guess. Kind of some debate on whether or not the wheel broke off or if the contact uh, broke the wheel off or if it was left loose or whatever the deal was. But they treated it in the race as though it was a wheel that came off and penalized them 2 laps. So I'm
Yeah,
assuming
Denny
that
talked about it on his
he's probably looking at a crew
podcast.
member.
Yeah, Denny talked about it on
Oh,
his
did he?
podcast that he said he felt something coming off of two, and then it came off in three. So it definitely was before the contact. So he kind of confirmed that in his podcast.
Okay. Um, that's good. I appreciate Denny's honesty there. Where did those guys end up finishing, both Hamlin and Larson?
31st and 32nd.
Yeah. Kind of a bad night for our picks there. Uh, Bubba Wallace ran really well throughout the race also, but ended up getting caught up in a caution with 12 to go that involved him, the 41 and the 6, kind of all got together there. Um, but where did Bubba end up finishing?
30, 34th.
Yeah, that's a bummer finish for a good night for him. So he might be able to continue on the momentum in New Hampshire. I don't know how he typically runs there, but that ought to be interesting. Um, Joey Logano, I think, finished fifth in this race.
Yeah.
Kind of somebody that wasn't a factor most of the night, but obviously there does Paul Wolf again, gets him in position to get a good finish out of the whole shebang when it's all said and done. Um, Not really much to say about Joey. Just ended up making it happen there at the end. But a guy that I do want to talk about here for just a minute, Chase Elliott ends up nosing into the wall, uh, ends his night. Were you concerned that he was in a position to get eliminated after that? I mean, Elliott seemed to think he was eliminated.
Yeah. I had to, after the wreck, I had to watch the points play out, and it became apparent that Bowman would have had to win to eliminate him. So, um, the only way Bowman would have pointed his way in is if Cindric had issues, and of course we talked about that he had issues, but Bowman in the end ran out of tires and couldn't get the win. So
Yeah, typical hack performance by Bowman. Um, is Alex Bowman fired?
I don't know who else they'd put in the car.
You don't think we can find anybody?
I don't know who's down in the Xfinity Series or any other driver that'll.
I'd buy Kyle Busch out of his contract.
I
I
don't
would
see
do
Rick
that.
doing
Well,
it.
I would be doing that until Raja's ready.
Yeah, I don't see that happening, but
I didn't say I see it happening. I just said
yeah.
I think that would be the move. Um, I don't know if Bowman's in danger of losing his job or not, but he should be. Moving on from that, we've had enough Alex Bowman hate on this podcast for a while now. But it just, I like the way that you kind of evaded my whole topic here of Chase Elliott's situation. Did he cause his own demise there? Did he wreck himself?
Um, yeah, pretty much. I mean, he tried. He was going slower than the cars behind him, and he dove right in front of Nemechek and got hit from that. And I think it got exacerbated from the Hamlin hit onto Nemechek, but I would put the blame all on Chase.
I appreciate that about you. You're usually pretty honest about your own driver. Sometimes to the point where you think that you talk about him like he's not any good at all. You'd think that he was Alex Bowman. But yeah, I agree. It was Chase's fault, but I don't think that it was like I get what he was trying to do. It just didn't work out.
Yeah.
And you'll have that happen sometimes. Um, Fortunately, it didn't cost him a shot at continuing on. I really don't have anything else to say about this race. Um, we saw Lane Riggs end up winning the truck race. I was able to watch that race, and Eric Almirola gets the victory in the Xfinity race as well. Um, some guys dedicating some wins to Charlie Kirk, and that got some negative reaction on NASCAR Twitter and some positive reaction on NASCAR Twitter. Um, I don't know what your reaction was to that. Typically, I'm pretty well in favor of leaving politics out of sports, just in general, but I didn't really have any problem with either one of those.
No, I mean, it's just a whole sad situation overall, and he was a human being and left a wife and two kids behind. But
Yeah.
that's it. It's all that matters in the end.
Yeah, guy was shot for his speaking his thoughts. So if that's the case, I better board up this window here because one of those Bowman defenders might have a target on me, myself as well. Uh, there's not many of those guys. I guess that's it from Bristol this week. We'll be looking forward to New Hampshire, see what that race ends up bringing, and make sure that you follow us on our social medias at Garage Area on X, at the Garage Area on Instagram, and at the .garage.area on TikTok. We'll see you guys next week.